restaurant, the Bistro, or in the island on which she'd spent too many years trying to hold together the pieces of her alcoholic mother's disheveled life, helping to run the Bistro and keep a roof over their heads. Deirdre had fled immediately after high school to attend Boyer University in upstate New York with her bestie, Sutton Steele, and had finally started living her own life. But self-preservation had consequences, and Abby had been stuck caring for their mother in Deirdre's absence. That sucked. But what choice had Deirdre had at the time? Stay on the rinky-dink island running a restaurant she resented and putting her drunk mother to bed while her dreams went to pot? Besides, Abby had encouraged her to go, and Deirdre had clung to that support like a lifeboat in her sea of guilt as she'd set out to prove herself to Abby, and maybe even to stick it to her mother and show that she couldn't hold her back. Deirdre stared at the ceiling, discomfort simmering inside her. She'd thought her resentment toward the island and all that it represented might ease now that her mother was gone. But painful reminders lingered like ghosts in the wind, and the house and her bedroom were filled with them. Abby and Aiden had done a great job of sprucing it up. It was absolutely gorgeous. To anyone else, it would seem warm and inviting. But there wasn't enough paint on the planet to obliterate Deirdre's painful memories. How many nights had she snuck out the window just to sit on the hill and look out at the water to keep from drowning in her mother's wake? Maybe she shouldn't have come back, but she couldn't do that to Kate. The start of her impromptu hiatus had lined up with the day Kate and all their friends were fixing up her new tattoo shop. Deirdre wasn't big on manual labor, but she loved her sisters, and she'd needed to get out of Boston. She was glad she'd come, even if being on the island was uncomfortable. She'd gotten to witness Kate's boyfriend, Deirdre's childhood friend Brant Remington, get down on one knee in front of all their friends and propose. Deirdre couldn't be happier for them. But come hell or high water, she was getting off this island tomorrow and going on a well-deserved vacation, the destination of which was yet to be determined. The sound of the front door jarred her from her thoughts, and Abby's giggles floated upstairs. She and her fiancé, Aiden Aldridge, couldn't keep their hands off each other. Deirdre glanced at her phone. It was almost 1 o'clock in the morning. In the spring, Abby had moved back home from New York, where she'd worked 60-plus hours a week as a chef. She'd met and fallen head over heels for Aiden in a whirlwind love affair. Together, they'd revived the Bistro, and they were getting married in November. Deirdre tried to focus on the distant sounds of Silver Harbor sneaking in through the open window, instead of the cacophony of laughter, low conversations, and prolonged silences, followed by loud, lustful sounds coming from downstairs. If only she were back in Boston. She preferred her noisy neighbor's stereo blasting classic rock and oldies at all hours over this. At least that she could dance to. Needless to say, she was a little jealous of her sisters' love lives. Not that she'd had time for a man, or anything else besides work these last few years. More noises floated upstairs. She closed her eyes, willing them not to have sex in the living room, or worse, in the kitchen. She had to eat at that table. Oh, God, that's probably what Aiden is doing. She squeezed her eyes shut. Delete, delete, delete. What was she thinking, staying in her old bedroom? She should have stayed in the apartment over the garage. Why hadn't she thought of that from the get-go? A loud thud rattled the walls, followed by more laughter. Deirdre flew out of bed. She was not going to listen to a play-by-play of Abby and Aiden having sex. She put on her silk kimono and headed downstairs, praying she wouldn't catch them in a compromising position. She stopped on the bottom step, eyeing the trail of clothing that led past the steps and down the hall to their bedroom. Thank God. Hurrying into the kitchen, she snagged the key to the apartment off the hook by the side door and quietly slipped outside. She crossed her arms against the brisk September air as she climbed the steps to the apartment above the garage. A streak of moonlight lit a path down the hallway to the bedroom. She took off her kimono and slipped under the warm covers, closing her eyes as she sank into the mattress. Something moved beside her.